Hey guys, my name is Carlos Rodriguez, and I'm here with Sean Uyehara from Loan Depot. What's up, man?
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
How you feeling?
Another day in the lovely real estate world here in Vegas, and excited to talk about the market with you today.
I appreciate you being here, man. How long have you been in the industry, bro?
I've been in the industry, this will make 16 years. So I got in right after college in around 2006, 2007, and got in and didn't know what I was getting into, not knowing we were going into one of the worst times, in American history as far as the recession goes, and stuck it out and survived the market during that craziness.
Yeah, I see you doing great now, man, and you have a lot of influence around here, and I wanted to pick your brain on a few topics that have been on my mind and a lot of people's minds as well. And number one is interest rates have jumped up in the last week.
Yeah, for sure.
So we used to be at 3.25, 3.5% was a norm. Now we're looking over 4%.
Yep. There's a lot of things that have taken place. It's kind of been on the radar for a lot of us as lenders over the last several months that we knew this is coming. We know the Fed is going to meet, and they've already acknowledged that they're going to start increasing, their rates and even tapering back some of their mortgage buying, the bonds that they typically buy. They're tapering that back, which is all going to translate to higher interest rates for everybody. And you're exactly right. Rates were in the threes, and now they're in the fours. I just had a client yesterday. When we initially pre-approved him a couple of months ago, we were at about 3.5%. And we literally just went into contract today, and we repriced his loan, and he was at about 4.5%. So a 1% increase. With the type of loan that he's doing, we were doing a vacation home.
Okay.
So that was part of it. And also, Fannie Mae had actually come out and publicly said that, we are going to change the way that we price second homes because this is what I'm speculating. I think there was just a lot of people that were utilizing vacation homes as rental properties. Airbnbs have become very, very popular.
Right.
And I just feel that there was a lot of people, because I talked to a lot of people that were trying to buy Airbnbs and, call it a vacation home when you're really buying it as a rental. So I think for Fannie Mae, they were probably, catching wind to maybe some of this stuff. And I think they, increased the fees to all mortgage lenders. There are pricing adjustments that we have to look at. And that's why for that specific client, we had over a point increase in his interest rate. And yeah, he was shocked when we told him.
Yeah, I bet. I remember seeing that because I think you posted it on your Instagram. And I recommend you guys follow Sean on his Instagram. He posts a lot of good content. And for example, that increase in vacation homes, I saw that coming. But we weren't sure when it was going to take into effect, right?
Yeah. And
I've heard about the increase was going to come in the first quarter. So I was thinking towards the end of the first quarter, but it happened within.
Yeah. It's they say they're going to announce it, or it's going to take effect April 1st. But, every lender is going to start pricing it ahead of time and kind of bake it into their rates as they get closer to that date.
I see.
So, for us at Loan Depot, we're maybe we might be early on it, but it's going to happen sooner or later across the board.
Sean, can you touch a little bit about what you said earlier, that they're not buying the loans anymore? What does that mean?
Yeah, so the Fed was buying, a bunch of mortgage-backed securities and bonds, and that kind of helps keep the market stabilized. So now that they're tapering back on a lot of the buying, traditionally that's what happens. Rates kind of start to increase. One kind of indicator that a lot of people look at is the 10-year bond. So the bond price, as that increases, rates typically increase as well. They're not directly correlated to each other, but it's a good indicator, and it's constantly going up. So it's inevitable. There's no way that the Fed could have continued to keep rates where they've been. We've been at 3% for how long? I mean, we even were in the 2% range during COVID, right? And we've never seen that. I've never seen that in my 15-year career. So it was an amazing opportunity for a lot of people to both purchase and refinance. But 4% 4.5% is still a good rate.
Still low, right?
It's still low. If you actually, and I posted this on my social media, if you actually go and Google, Freddie Mac 30-year mortgage rates, and you look at the history over the last 50 years, 4%, you're still at at some of the lowest rates that you've ever seen in the last 50 years.
Right.
I always tell clients, when I bought my first house back in 2010, my interest rate was 7%. I think it was like 6 3/4 or something like that. It was 7%, and that was the best that you could get at the time.
Right.
And I was happy with that. So shoot, if I could buy a house today and get 4%, that's fine by me.
Right. What would you say would be the number one rule when someone's buying a house and they're looking at their mortgage, right? Because a lot of people are renting right now, and the rents keep going up. As far as the rent, it's also going up just as much. What should somebody look for when investing into a property as far as like their affordability goes?
I think if they're going to be living in the home, I try to explain to them, this is going to be a home that you're going to stay in for several years, right? I think the average is 5 to 7 years someone will stay in their property, whether they refinance or sell. So look at the opportunity of knowing that your mortgage payment is going to be consistent over that time frame. Now, when you're budgeting and trying to figure out what can we truly afford, it's good to have a ballpark of where you kind of want your mortgage payment to be. I always tell clients, look, if you can get into a mortgage that's going to be pretty comparable to what you would pay in rent, try to look at qualifying for a house.
Right.
Because if not, you could definitely stay maybe in your rental for another year, but what happens when the lease expires? I've heard some landlords increasing rents like $500, $1,000.
Yeah.
There's people that I've talked to recently that they're staying in 1-bedroom apartments and they're paying $1,800 a month.
Wow. Here in Vegas?
Here in Vegas.
Oh man.
So, buying if you can get a mortgage that's, call it $2,200 a month, why not take a shot at it? See if you can get into a home, utilize some of these down payment assistance programs that are available, and just to see what can you truly afford. And if you can't, that loan officer should at least give you a roadmap to say, hey, Carlos, these are some of the things you need to work on. And I think if you accomplish some of these tasks, maybe in the next 6 months, maybe you can then purchase your first home. So I think, like anything else, it's talking to a good realtor, obviously like yourself, that knows the market, that owns multiple properties, and getting with a lender that knows how to structure deals to get people into homes.
Exactly. Yeah, right now I think it's a good time to get creative with the financing. I know that people can use co-signers, right? How long do they need to keep that co-signer on that loan before they can refi them out?
As long as they can refinance and qualify for the refi. So that's kind of the caveat. If you have someone go on the mortgage, you can certainly remove them from the mortgage in the future, but you just have to remember that instead of, let's say, 2 or 3 people on the loan with the co-signer, let's say it was a husband and a wife and a co-signer. So instead of 3 incomes, if we're going to eliminate 1 and down to 2, we need to make sure that the 2 of you can qualify for the mortgage, so that way we can get the other person off. Again, working with a lender to know, hey, this is what we need to do in the future to make sure we structure, our finances properly, to be able to get that person off the mortgage if that's something, that's a concern.
Yeah, definitely. So something that I tell my clients when they're debating whether to keep renting or to buy a house, because everybody's scared to get into that 30-year commitment, right? They feel like they're going to be responsible for that loan for 30 years, but that's not the case. When you buy a property, the number one thing I tell everyone is to make sure that you can rent out that property and still be able to cover your mortgage, no matter what happens, right? People are scared if they lose their job or something happens. If the worst case scenario happens, rent out the house, make a little bit of money every month, and you get to keep the house. You don't have to do a foreclosure, none of that other stuff. So I think that's something to base your purchase on, whether you can rent it out for at least what the rents are going for in that area.
Yeah, and I think it's, I think what a lot of people get afraid of is they think about what happened in 2008. And we're in two completely different markets. You know, people that bought homes back then, most lenders, they didn't need to verify anything, and you could literally get a loan with a decent credit score. Today, you have to qualify. You know, you have to show me your pay stubs. I have to see your tax returns. You have to show the lender that you can truly afford this house.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing for a lot of people to understand, that you're not necessarily going to go into a bad loan, or you're not going to necessarily be put into a bad situation. A lender's going to show you what you can qualify for, right? Your maximum, as say, well, Carlos, you can buy up to a $500,000 home. You don't need to buy a $500,000 home. You know, if you can make do with a $400,000 house, then hey, there's nothing wrong with that. No one's forcing you to go buy the $500,000 house. And I think that's also a good point as far as working with a good realtor too. Knowing the finances is half the battle, but I've heard horror stories of agents that, you know, were trying to get clients into the top end of their budget just so that they can close on a house and make their commission.
Right.
So does the agent, are they doing the right thing for the client, or are they doing the right thing for themselves? I think that's also something, as a first-time home buyer, you need to ask those questions, you know, for yourself, and do your homework, you know, as to who you're working with.
Exactly. Definitely. So I wanted to ask you this question, man. Do you think the market is going to crash with all this inflation going on? Everything seems like it's just going up and there's no limit.
I don't think anything's going to slow down here in Vegas. I think we've just got way too many positive things as to why we're drawing people to town. You know, one of the most common reasons why people are relocating to Vegas is the fact that we have no state income tax.
Right.
So, you know, I'm licensed in 20 states, so I've talked to people all over the country, and we've had a lot of people, obviously, from California, right? You can Google that. There's a mass exodus of people leaving there, and they're going to places like Las Vegas, you know, Texas, Florida, and a lot of places over in the Southwest. And obviously you have a lot of people from New York and, you know, those types of states where they're, you know, the snowbirds, where now they're saying, you know what, I'm tired of the cold. I'm tired of paying these taxes, and with inflation and the cost of living, where can I go to get more bang for my buck?
Exactly.
So people in New York, they're going down to Florida, you know, Georgia, North Carolina. Texas is obviously another hot one, and of course, you know, Vegas. Yeah. So I don't think we're going to see any slowdown in our market over here at all.
Right. I've been talking to a few people that are looking to retire here.
Yeah.
Because of the same reason. It's so affordable. The weather's great. You know, it's hot for a few months, but then you get 9 months of great weather.
Yeah. Well, and the cost of living, you know, when you're on fixed income and you're retired, that dollar has to stretch that much farther for you. Exactly. And if you're living in a state where now you're having to pay state income tax on your, you know, funds that you're receiving, you know, I think that's why you see a lot of, you know, older people that look to go back to work part-time. I mean, yeah, part of it, you know, is self-choice of, you know, maybe they're bored.
Yeah.
But I would hate, even for, you know, my parents to think about going back to work if they were that old and, you know, having to try to make, you know, $12 an hour or whatever they're going to get just to make ends meet. Right?
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah. No, and here we have Pahrumps really hot for retired people. You know, I get a lot of questions about Pahrump. A lot of people from the East Coast are actually learning about Pahrump now, and they're reaching out, asking questions, and Pahrump, just great. You can buy 1 acre. You can live off the grid if you wanted to. You have your own well, septic tank. You could throw up some solar panels, get a battery, and you'll be good to go. So
we've done a few deals out there. So yeah, I mean, the prices, you know, are a lot less. And I think that's where, again, a good agent is going to help the clients understand that. You know, if they're not familiar with Las Vegas, Pahrump's not that far. It's about an hour drive, right, from town. So if you're accustomed to driving, that might be the next, you know, bang for your buck if you don't want to necessarily compete with the buyers here, you know, in Clark County.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's go back to 2008, because you were already in the business during that crash. When everything crashed, did they increase the interest rates?
Rates were still pretty high. I don't know what they were exactly. Like I said, I bought my place in 2010, and I was at about 7%. I think rates back then were, I would say, 4 or 5% range.
So average?
They were about that for quite a while. I do know that because once we started to see the threes come around, obviously there was a lot of talk behind that and a lot of buzz, and a lot of people got excited. And then let alone to hit the 2% range.
I know. I remember
that was insane.
Yeah, watching the news, and they were like, "Oh, it's gonna go down to 0," and people were waiting for it to go down to 0.
Yeah,
like really. So sometimes watching the news is not the best thing. You want to get in contact with people that are in the industry, and they are getting their information directly from Freddie Mac and those sources. So I mean, I want everybody to just have access to us, that we're in the market, and we can answer any questions anytime. This is why we're making these videos, you know, for you guys, so you guys can get informed and know who to reach out to when you're ready or when you have any questions. I wanted to ask you too, do you see the interest rates dropping back down to 2%, anything like that?
There's talks that maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, rates could drop again. There could be another, what they call a refi boom, which basically, you know, everyone is looking to refinance, kind of what we went through with COVID. But I think it's still one of those opportunities that if you can get into a home today, you know, it's worth taking a look versus speculation on interest rates, speculating on the market, and waiting for the right time. I think a lot of people try to do that and time the market, but it's hard to do that. It's really hard to do that because let's just say, for example, the interest rate. You have to be in contract to lock your interest rate.
Yeah.
So even if the Fed came out today, or, you know, there was a massive announcement and said, you know, mortgage interest rates were at 1%, you wouldn't even get that rate. I wouldn't even get the rate because I'm not even looking to buy a house, right? So unless the news came out and I was able to refinance today, and stop everything what I'm doing for work, shooting this video, and I got to do my application, then I could get the rate.
Yeah.
But if you're a buyer and you're thinking about buying, unless you're in the market, unless you're pre-approved, unless they're working with you, showing them houses, and they get an offer accepted, you're not going to get that. So how you can't necessarily time it. It's just, hey, if by chance, while you're shopping, if you can get a decent rate, a good rate that works for you, to me, that's all what it's all about, right? And again, hindsight's always 20/20. You can always look back and say, well, hey, I should have bought in 2011 at the bottom of the market. But what did the media talk about back then? All the media said was, it's a foreclosure crisis, don't buy, you know, people are filing bankruptcies, people are filing foreclosures, and all of this nonsense was taking place. And don't get me wrong, right? That did take place. However, investors read between the lines. And there were tons of investors that bought property. And I remember doing loans on single family homes that were under 100,000.
Yeah.
You know, condos and townhomes we were doing loans for 30, 40,000 bucks. I was like, my car was worth more than that.
I know, right?
And it was just insane to think that, you know, people who could see between the lines and they had the money, they were taking advantage of the market.
Yeah.
You know, and then ever since then, you know, values have just continuously gone up. I mean, obviously, you know, your property that you bought, and I know you share your story too about that. And it's like, how many people did you talk to back then that should have bought a house? You know, that
everybody that didn't own should have bought a house.
They should have bought, right? I mean, you could have literally had a mortgage payment for like $500 back then.
Yeah. So I want to touch on that, on timing the market, because people want to wait for that crash, right? But I think they forget what happened during that crash.
Yeah.
Thousands of people lost their job.
Yep.
How are you going to buy a house when it's dirt cheap, but you have no job, right?
And not only that, but what caused the crash, it was the subprime market. You know, it was bad mortgages that were out there. But so you look at, conversely to today, everyone's got to qualify.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care if you have an 800 credit score. We still have to pull your credit. You still have to show me your taxes. You still have to show me your bank statements, and you still have to show me you can buy and qualify for a mortgage.
Exactly.
So everybody goes through the same scrutiny today. And why the market crashed? Because it was, you look at the supply and demand. You know, there was a lot of supply that the banks made the mistake of foreclosing on a ton of people and then flooding the market with the inventory.
Right.
But what did they do this time around? They offered forbearance,
Yeah.
right? They offered help. So the banks aren't going to make the same mistake twice.
Right.
So now they're saying, well, let's help these homeowners stay in your house. Don't worry about making your payment. We'll figure it out in the back end. Okay. So now you're basically controlling the inventory, which means what? Values continue to go up.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss. And they also think, like you said, there's going to be this crash, but there can't be a crash if there's not inventory. And we have no inventory on the market.
Right.
What was the last amount that you looked at as far as inventory wise?
I think it was like 2,300 new listings on the market.
Right? So if
It's
not,
like nothing.
if not one more person lists their home for sale, there's nothing for sale.
Yeah,
In 30
it'll be
days, we're done.
So do you think that the rates went up because there's a really high demand?
I think, you know, with inflation, it was just a matter of time. You know, I don't think they could continue to hold the rates where they were. It was inevitable. We all knew at a certain point, even during our refi boom, it was, as a lender, that's like the one moment in your career where you know you can make a lot of money.
Refis.
It was that refi boom because everyone who literally owned a home, you could possibly refinance their house
And save a couple
and
$100.
save them money, you know. And because of how much the values have increased over the last 10 years, almost everyone's got equity.
Oh, yeah.
So it was easy to make a deal work.
Yeah.
Now, think about back in the crash, everyone was upside down.
Yeah.
So you couldn't refinance. So the only other option back then was to short sale.
Short sale.
And that's why short sales became so popular, because you had no choice other than maybe doing a loan modification, but you would have to deal with the bank directly and not a loan officer like myself. There's nothing that we could necessarily do to help you.
Yeah. Damn, that's crazy. I remember, because my dad was a real estate agent. He started in 2003. He was talking to a couple people, and they were debating whether they should buy this property at $65,000. They wanted to wait because they thought it was going to keep going down.
Yeah.
So it goes back to time in the market, right? It's impossible.
Yep.
So the best time to buy is when you have a full-time job, you have good credit, you have some money saved, you know, to put down for your down payment or closing costs. Time in the market never works out.
I think the people that try to do that, I think they only end up missing the boat. And I almost feel like they don't even buy because they're so focused on, let's just say, either the interest rate or, you know, the housing market's overpriced. I need to pay a certain amount for the home.
Yeah.
And until one of those two things happen, I feel like they sit on the sideline and they don't do anything.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they end up missing the boat. And again, when you look back in time, why would you not have bought the house for $65,000?
I know.
Or when we could have refinanced you at 2.5%, why wouldn't you have taken that? Because even during that time, people were telling me, I don't want to take 2.25% because I think rates are going to go to 1%. I'm like, this is free money. Like, this is essentially free money. Your car loan is higher than your mortgage.
Yeah.
What? Like, just take it. Take the 2%. It's, you know, but hey, I think that's where a lot of people make the mistake. And I think this is where now rates are going to, you know, they're in the 4s. I think a lot of people are going to say, oh, shoot, we missed the boat. Now we need to look at buying, right? So how many people today will buy a house that they could have bought last year that now they're going to pay more for the home and they're going to pay a higher interest rate?
I know. And it sucks, but you can't convince anyone to do anything.
Yeah.
All we can do is
Give them the
show
information.
you, and then you make your own
decide.
decision.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what we're here for, guys. We want to give you the best information as soon as we can. So right now, this is the most up to date on the interest rates. I don't know if they're going to go up higher next month or not, but the rents are not going down either. So I would rather pay a higher mortgage than pay a higher rent for 5 years and have that money go to nothing.
Yeah.
If I get into a house, start paying my mortgage, I know that within 3 to 5 years, I'm gonna have equity there, right? And then you have more options to either cash out, sell, and buy something better, or buy a second property and start cash flowing on a rental.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have no options when you're renting.
Yeah, and the trade-off, I know there's a lot of people on social media that they're against owning a home because, you know, maybe you're an entrepreneur and the money goes back to your business, but hey, okay, you know, but you're betting on yourself, and I get that. But if you're paying $2,000 a month in rent, which is almost the norm, probably it's even on the low side, probably today, in 1 year, it's $24,000. In a course of 5 years, it's $100,000.
Yeah,
it's $100,000, and there's literally programs out there today that can help cover the down payment for you to purchase a home. So there's money there. It's available. It's a state-funded program. It's not going away unless they say so. So there's, you know, all these resources, but yet people will still continuously pay the rent, which, you know, it's shocking, but I get it. It's a personal decision.
Yeah. Man, well, Sean, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your knowledge. And guys, if we didn't cover anything in this video, please leave a comment below. We'll respond right away because we want to get you the information as soon as we can so you can make the right decision for your future, right? Sean's here. You can follow him on Instagram. Is it just Sean Yu?
Mr.Sean Yu.
Mr.Sean Yu. You can follow me on Instagram as well at Vegas Carlos, and we'll see you on the next one.